would do if like we were or anything like that. So my name is Miha Gorban, and I'm an attorney in San Diego. And my practice areas are family law and immigration law. So how I describe it is either I can get rid of your spouse or get you a spouse, depending on what you're thinking of. But I didn't start off as a solo practitioner. I started in a large law firm. Then I went to a partnership, then to solo practice. So we'll go through that a little bit. But I was telling Natalie that years ago, I talk about when, I was a member of this group. So it feels really nice to be back, like full circle. And at my undergrad at San Diego State, it was criminal justice. I never thought I would go to law school. That was not the plan. Here I am. And then after graduating, I came back and did my master's in public administration. Again, not planning to go to law school. It was either work in politics in government agencies or go campaigns, things like that. I was approached by the FBI because I speak a different language. I speak Farsi, and that was much in demand as it is still today. And I wasn't sure that's where I wanted to go into that. So I worked a little bit out after graduate school. I worked in DC for Department of Energy. I worked for the mayor's office here in San Diego, worked on a couple of campaigns, local campaigns, state campaigns, national campaigns. And then it was like, okay, in order to advance what I was doing, the law degree will come in handy. Not necessarily, again, to practice as lawyer in a firm, in court, but have the education. It will come in handy in politics and some of the government agencies that I've worked with. And went to law school. Actually, I didn't get into school here in San Diego. They didn't like me. Okay, fine. And I almost went to Boston University. I was accepted there, paid my, deposit, started packing, and I got a notification from Golden Gate that, oh, we like to have you here. I'm like, well, I don't want to pay out of state tuition, so I'm going to stay here. And so I went to school in the Bay Area. So I was home as much as I could, and then it got expensive. I know it's like, we don't need to visit as often. But again, going through law school was never the idea of practicing per se. The education, I knew it was crucial, it was important, and more than anything else, it would be valuable in what I wanted to do. Fast forward, after your first year, okay, what am I going to do during the summer? And I was very fortunate. I knew someone connected me with a large law firm that had an office in San Francisco, and they've never had a law clerk. So when you go in as a law student, you're called a law clerk. And they're like, well, we don't know what to do with you. I'm like, okay, are you going to pay me? That's not my concern. Like, yeah, we'll give you an office and we'll just have you like research. I'm like, okay, I can do that after a first year of law school. You can, that's what you learn, like the very basics, and then how to research and start some of your memorandums. They did corporate law. Corporate law, you don't get until second year. So you're like, I have no idea. Okay, I'll learn it, wing it, and that's what you do. Then they asked me to stay after my first summer there. So I kind of switched gears. I didn't go full time. I went back part-time. So I worked during the day for the firm, and I went to school at night. So now I become a night owl, because that's how I had to survive. You go work and you don't always have a chance to study or catch up. So you're working. And then in the evenings at the classes, and you get home by 10, you're, well, I gotta study now. And you're up till, 2 or 3 in the morning. So instead of finishing law school in 3 years, I did it in 4 years because I did it part-time. So a lot of people do that. That's an option. Don't ever fear like you didn't finish it in 3 years. I do. And then from law school, graduate from law school, I was offered a job at that firm. So I didn't have a lot of different experiences from firms because they wanted me. I'm like, I want to stay. I have student loans. I'm in the Bay Area. It's expensive. I don't live with my parents. And so perfect. And then study for the bar. I didn't pass it the first time. It's okay. Took it the second time. I needed accommodations because I hurt my back. If you have those accommodations, take advantage of it, use it. Passed, and I was like, okay, do I still want to continue with this firm or do I want to do something else? So I moved to San Diego and I looked at something else, which was a smaller firm, did family law, which is divorce and spouse support and separation and It was not fun. I did not like it. And again, I didn't think I would go into practice, but when you come out of law school, you have a lot of debt. So you really want to think about when you're pursuing law school, how you want to pursue it, how do you want to go about it, what are going to be your financial obligations afterwards, and if that's something that you're capable of handling. You're going to have loans. I'm still paying them after all of these years. So those are some of the considerations, but I'm like, no, I got a job, might as well. Did not like that job. I cried all the time. I was at work and we had to bill like every 6 minutes. I hated that. I would take my lunch in the car and cry because it's not the kind of work I wanted to do. You suck it up and you go back in and you do your job. I wanted to leave, and I was very fortunate in meeting another colleague, and I'll go into a little bit more about mentorship and finding a mentor. But San Diego County Bar is the bar organization here, right, in San Diego, and we have our attorneys that are supposed to be a member. You don't always have to. And they had a program, sort of like, let's connect you with senior attorneys, not like necessarily because they're older, but maybe they've had more years of practice. You can connect with them. And I signed up, and there were 18 people signed up for this one mentor. Only 3 people showed up. Don't do that. When you sign up, go. But I was happy because I was one of only 3. She spent the entire hour talking with us. And then from there, we met once a month for dinner where we could ask her questions and things like that. So in that process, one of the other attorneys who showed up became my law partner. So the 2 of us started our own firm. And again, family law and immigration. Immigration just being easier, not necessarily easier in law because it's very complex, but easier because we were able to connect with people as a, minority. As an immigrant, it was a lot easier to connect with those clients, and I spoke the languages. And COVID was really hard on us. It wasn't so much for me because my children were older, so I didn't have to teach them while we were at home. But she did. She had younger kids. So she basically gave up law. And that's okay. If you go to law school and you decide law is not for you, it's okay. She decided she wanted to do something else. So I went into solo practice. So I've done the big ass firm, the medium, the partnership, and then the solo practice. And then as far as being in San Diego, there was always the concern that if you don't go to law school in San Diego, it's hard to come back here. It's not. We do have, let me circle back. San Diego is a big city. We have a large legal community, but it's actually really small. We all know one another. So if you don't start here, it's okay. You can come back and build your reputation. But I think that's one of the main things that I want to discuss, just because it's not always shared. If you're thinking about law school, and we'll get into a little later, your reputation starts now. When you invite someone to come here, when you make connections with the attorneys, they'll remember the 3 people who showed up, and the other, 15 had to do math. Yeah, 15 who didn't show up. They'll remember that. When you say you're going to do something, do it. When you're going to call them, because we'll remember. And in San Diego, we always connect with one another. We were just talking about all the other speakers that you've had who are already connected. We do that with one another, attorneys. If there's an intern or a student that we met, we all call each other, do you know this person? What do you think? Build that connection, build the reputation. And then if you think about law school, and if you apply to schools in San Diego, it doesn't work out, it's okay. Apply to a different school. If you need to stay in San Diego, take time, apply again. It's fine. If you want to look for a job in San Diego, you want to stay here. Yes, if you go to school here, but you need to make the connections. Come back during the summers. Build your connections with the people that are in San Diego, and come back and do your internships here. Come back and do your clerkships here. And there are a lot of organizations, especially, Lawyers Club, they're all about advancing status of women. It's not just for women, it's for men as well, but join those. There are a lot of organizations depending on your background, what areas you want to come. I'm Iranian, so I belong to the Iranian American Bar Association. They're, Filipinos organization. They're EB, which is the Earl B. Gilliam for Black students. So it just depends on your background, make those connections. And I have to tell you, as undergrads, even graduate students, when you reach out to an attorney, it's so nice to hear from you because we want to help you. I want to help you make sure you don't go to law school if you don't have to. But if you do, then make sure it's for the right reasons, you are prepared and you know what's coming your way. And that was one of the biggest concerns that I always want to share with even undergrads, but mainly law students, which you like. But before that is, I had, growing up, being Iranian, naturally, culturally, we're always told you have to be an engineer or a doctor. I'm like, darn it. I don't do science, I do math. Do I have an option 3? Legal, here, being a lawyer. And it was sort of like, those are your only options. If you're in that environment, I get you, but don't fall into that. Find what speaks to you or, whatever works for you. Criminal justice was that area. Like I said, I wasn't sure I wanted to go into law and practice law, but I knew that was an area that I wanted to go into. But when you do, also realize that most people can't afford law school straight out. You just can't pay out of pocket. You're looking at 15 to 25, maybe 30 grand a semester. And most people need to be in school, especially the first year. And so these are all accumulating over the years. When I graduated from law school, I had over $85,000 worth of student loans, and I worked. But living in San Francisco, whatever I made just paid for rent. But the student, the tuition, things like that. Think about that, not to discourage you, but I think to plan, because you don't want to come out and take that first job because you have to make the payments. And that was an advice from one of the professors. Don't take as much loans. It's easy for you to say, the rest of us are poor, we're going to school. But it was purely so if you come out, the first job offer may not be a place you want to work at. You don't like their work ethics. You don't like, or maybe you don't like the area of practice, but you're like, oh, crap, I have rent, I have student loans, I'm going to have to take it. And then you're stuck. The other being, don't feel obligated to stay at a job for a long time. I think when, I'm not ancient, but when I was going through law school, it was don't leave before 3 to 5 years. Because if that's on your resume, that you keep going from one place to another, a lot of places don't want to hire you because they know they're going to spend all that time and money with you to train you, and you're not going to stay with them. You're going to go somewhere else. I never say stay, be miserable. Well, you're going into law, so it will be miserable, but it could be fun depending on where you go. But if you're somewhere where you don't like their culture, you don't like the way they treat you, you don't like the way they treat their clients or how the clients treat the attorneys, have a mentor, have somebody, call them, call me. Get you out. No, it's not, but it's important to know that, it's a difficult profession. I never say, oh, don't put in the effort, suck it up. I mean, it's just like any job. If it's difficult, do it. But there's a difference between staying at a job because it's not a good fit and it's not a good place, as opposed to it's just hard work. You're just going to learn and you're going to, make mistakes, own up to them, and move forward. So those are the, the little basics of, and for the young ladies, not that this keeping the men out, but it's just if you're thinking about long term having kids and being an attorney, just know that there is the whole idea of there's a balance. You can do it all. It's bullshit. You can, but not all at the same time. That balance does not exist. Right now, instead of picking up my kids, somebody else is doing it so I can be here. I can't do both. Tonight, I'm going to another board meeting. Somebody else is taking care of the kids. tomorrow morning, I'm running out doing school stuff and work is going to be put on hold. So you just have to know that there are things that you have to put aside for certain things. Gentlemen, same thing. My husband works from home, he takes care of some things. You know, you may be that person that wants to do that, and that's perfectly okay. But usually it's always seen as a woman's job. So that's why I want to make sure that I let all these know. And it's also it's an area where I think women are always you want to be treated equally, but it's very difficult. There's numerous times where we've walked into courtrooms and not so much for me, maybe I have that, I don't know, but I've had colleagues who go into a courtroom and the first thing that maybe the reporters will say, oh, are you the translator? Or are you here? You're like, no, I'm the attorney on record. You know, I've had the opposite when we've had, even before COVID, there's when you go into court, if you can't make it to court, some of the things that the judges will allow is called a court call, which was, you know, you can just literally call because all you want the judge to do is hear like 2 sentences. Yes, these people agreed. They're good. Can we have your signature on this form, Your Honor? Can we, you know, so we don't have to come to court. My name is very difficult. So a lot of judges would look at it and go, I don't know if it's a man or a woman. And so they would, the first thing they would say is, Mr. Gorban, you're next on court call. And you're like, first thing I would have to say is, good morning, Your Honor. This is Michal Gorban. And you can hear I'm going, shit, because I realize I'm a girl. The good thing with that was that, you know what, I get whatever I want because they feel embarrassed and they go, just let her have whatever she wants, sign it off, that's okay. But they would learn, it's a process, but it's always, you know, I had girlfriends who were, you know, would walk in, like, they think I'm the translator, they think I'm the, you know, court reporter, they think, you know, I'm the secretary. You deal with that, you do the hoping that my generation or, you know, after me will make it better by the time you're up, it may not. And for the gentlemen, guys, you know, do your best to support not only women, your colleagues, but also the profession. And that's important. I think that's done with my speech. It's a lot, but I'm open to questions. Yes, ma'am.
I was wondering what kind of work you did in DC.
Oh, I worked with Department of Energy. Actually, it was through San Diego State. It was an interim between graduated from the master's program and law school. And there is a program called, it's HACU, Hispanic Associations of Colleges and Universities. I think I went to career services and I'm like, I have the summer off, so give me something in between, you know, I can't be really serious because I'm going to go to law school. I can't have a full-time job. Like, oh, you don't have to be Hispanic, but you want to sign up for this? I'm like, sure. What did they do? They send you to DC. Okay. And did they pay you? Because I'm poor, I'm a student. Like, oh yeah. And what was nice, I don't know if it's still available here, was that the organization works with different government agencies and provides programs and student employment with different government agencies in DC. And depending on what you're interested in. And there are students from every state there and Puerto Rico as well. My connection was, you know, I went in and they're like, okay, give us your resume, fill out the form. And the deadline was actually within 24 hours. I'm like, well, oh, darn. They worked it out really easily because when they sent in my resume, because I had that available, I got a call right away because the person who was reading my resume, he graduated from San Diego State. So he's like, well, I want one of our own. I'm like, thank God. And so I didn't have to do some of the traditional write an essay, try to sell myself. He was already like, I know what she's doing. I know what she did. Oh, and I know her professors. I didn't need to have anyone write a letter of recommendation because he just called his old professor and go, hey, do you know her? She's in your class. What do you think? And so when I went to DC, Department of Energy, it was in their legal department. And we did the 3 months and then just stayed. Some of the clerks or some of the students who were part of the program got jobs afterwards, so they could stay. So yeah, so it actually started from here. Yeah. You didn't have to be Hispanic, so that was a good part. Yes.
So you're talking about debt. I'm wondering, like, you say if you're trying to convince people not to go to law school if they don't have to. So if a student was comfortable doing a job where they maybe don't have to go to law school, would you still recommend taking the LSAT and just like seeing how well you could do on it, or is that too much work in itself?
You know, I had, just annoyed me actually. I had a couple of girlfriends who, they were really, I mean, they are smart. They wanted to go to medical school. Their undergrad was, you know, biology, and they did really well. They didn't do well on the MCAT. So they're like, oh, I'm just gonna sit for the LSAT. I'm like, of course you are. Well, the rest of us have to like study really hard because it's in our area. They took it and they did really well. Annoying. I'm happy for them, but I was unhappy. And they decided to go to law school because like, well, what else am I gonna do? I'm not going to medical school, might as well go to law school. And I'm, as a person who that's all I wanted to ever do, I was like, well, shit. But it was, my thought in that is I wanted to be, and I was talking with Natalie, is that I wanted to make sure you had all the information. Because it's really easy to just like, don't worry about it, go do your best. And so you come out of law school and you'll figure it out. Yeah, but you also need to know reality that, you know, between the time that I graduated from law school and now, we had 3 recessions. There were a lot of my colleagues who had no jobs whatsoever. And, you know, all of a sudden you have to pay student loans. You're in deep. So my thought is, if that's not, you're not quite sure that's a thing for you, take the LSAT. You have the information, but don't feel like I have to go if I don't know what else I want to do. It's a lot of time and a lot of money for I'm not quite sure. That's what I mean. Take that year off. Some people don't have the luxury to take that year off, but it's just a matter of, it's a journey. And some people would be like, I have nothing else to do, I might as well keep going. Others are like, this is what I want to do. I've always wanted to, you know, work for the DA's office. I always wanted to do criminal law. I always wanted to do this. Then this is your calling. Let's do it. Let's find a path for you. Call me, we'll figure it out. But if you're not sure, it's a lot of time, energy, stress for something that's what it is. But take the test. Take it, oh, because it's so much fun. Take the and if you do really well, great, you have that available to you. Talk to as many attorneys as you can. And the hope is, I'm hoping that they'll be very open with you. I've had, when I was going through where you're going through, all I ever got was, oh, you're gonna be great. Oh, okay, yeah, thanks. Oh, you're gonna be fine in law school. Okay, oh, you're gonna be fine. But I never got that, girl. Let me tell you. I never got that because most of my mentors or people around me were all men. So they never wanted to just come in and tell me you're not gonna do well. You don't want to say that. And it's not like me here telling you guys I could do well. It's not that. It's just, I feel like, what didn't I get when I was going through this? I want to provide that information because it's easier to have, you know, someone come in like, you're gonna be great. You're gonna be great, yes. But can we have some of the background, like some of the, you know, the good and bad and the ugly of what may happen? So I always had you're gonna be great, it's gonna be fine, you're gonna do great, just study, outline, go to class and take the test. Okay. But there's so much more than that. So that's what I was hoping to.
Yeah.
Is that, are you thinking about law school? Is it just, you know?
No, I'm definitely in the second camp. Like, I definitely want to work in the legal field, but I just think there's some jobs where you don't necessarily have to have a JD, and I'm like scared of debt, so that's where.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
There are so many, the first firm that I was at, we were literally not allowed to touch anything. Like, you came in as the attorney, you were in your room. There's a suit in the back of the door at all times. If you got up to photocopy, like, what are you doing? Don't touch anything. Like, okay, you had to love somebody to photocopy for you. You feel like an invalid. You know, everything was done for you. Your job was to do the research, do the motions, and then go to court. The second firm that I went to, we had no tech support. I was tech support. No one wants me touching anything. I'm bad at tech, but I was tech support because it was a medium-sized firm. They didn't have that kind of luxury. It was a plaintiff's firm, so they didn't have that kind of coming in. And so it was different. And then it became my firm at ThinkWorks, you know, when we started off. So it just depends on where you go as well. There's a lot of things you can do with a law degree, and you don't need to have You don't need to have passed the bar. That's the other option. But a lot of my thought is, look, you've already gone to law school, might as well get the license just in case. But if you're not sure, yeah, it's a lot of money for something that you're not sure about. Take your work at a couple of law firms. You may come out and go, yeah, this is it. And I know this particular area I want to go into. And other times you may go, yeah, dodge a bullet on that one. I'm going to do something else. And you may have internships. Last year of law school, we're required, law school, it was called an externship. You actually worked at a firm. So I did both my regular job at a firm and I also went into a different firm. And that attorney practiced employment, which was all about, you want to sue your employer for sexual harassment or, pay, things like that. I hated that job. Oh my God, I hated employment law. I have girlfriends that, Audrey does that. I have girlfriends who are in amazing employment law firms. And that was not an area I liked. Some people consider it a waste of time, those, 4 months that I was at that firm, but you know what? It provided an option for me not to go into it. And I knew that I'm certain that's not a field for me. Immigration is. I'm more comfortable in that. Family law, I don't like it, but I just have a connection with my clients. I have a lot more of the, and you can change your practice as well when it's yours. Where my clients, the family law clients, I have a lot more of, how can I help you save this marriage? That's my first priority. It's not how fast can we get you divorced? Is there a way that I could help the two of you make this work? And if they're like, oh, hell no, I'm like, okay. Is there an option that maybe, if the answer is no, then my thought is if they have children, can we go through mediation? The less you hurt each other, the less you're gonna, the less you have to pay, the less you're gonna injure your children in this whole fight. That's how I pursue that. I have plenty of colleagues who are willing to do the other side. And if you're in that camp, I have friends I can refer you to. But I'm more of the, let me just get you through this process. It's a hard thing to do. Let's get through it the best we can, okay? Yes, the wedding rings have come off, but you don't have to put boxing gloves on and go at it. So that's my approach. Not all colleagues do that. So sometimes, in the practice, you find your niche or what you're good at and you do that. So that may be in the long run when you practice somewhere or you're in a firm, you see where your niche is and then you'll come back. And then maybe that firm will actually help you pay. So that's an option. Yeah. Yes, sir.
You kind of spoke to this a little bit ago, but could you kind of talk a little bit about the differences you saw from working in like the big giant law firm job versus a sole practitioner, kind of like how things changed for you and like what the different life was like?
Yeah. I think a lot of colleagues, once I've been practicing a long time, favor going into solo practice or going into a partnership. Just naturally, you have a lot more control. Yes and no. I work probably more now as a solo practitioner than I did at a firm because it was somebody else's. And I'm like, I am done. I am out, but I'll still work late, but you detach. It's not my problem, or it's not, I don't have to take care of the business portion. As a partner, and then now as a solo practitioner, I do more business than I do the practice of law. And you're constantly on. You are working all the time because it's yours. Not that I didn't care about my employers or my clients at the firm, but it's a different practice. I think one year, my gas and electric bill in San Francisco was under $10 a month because I was never home. We were there in the office from 6 a.m. So breakfast was in the office, lunch was in the office, dinner was in the office. We went home like at 11. You really just die. You go home and sleep. So the electricity bill was very low. Now, a lot more probably work from home if I needed to. I can go into the office. I'm able to do a lot more of this than I would have being at a firm because every minute is accounted for. And that was the hardest part was the time. When I worked for a plaintiff's firm, there were a large corporate firm. So they sued companies who lied about, their shares of stock. So the money that was coming in, it was a lot easier where we didn't have to keep time. We still submitted it, but it wasn't like every 6 minutes of calculating. Working for a firm that did it on an hourly basis, you had to. And I had a hard time, like by the time you finish your first 6 minutes of, thought you're in the next one and you're constantly, calculating that. That was difficult and I didn't like that. I didn't want to work like that. And so being on my own, I'm able to do that. I'm still keep track of time. Obviously, that's part of business, but it's a little bit different. So I think for that, going from such a huge timeline and such a huge, spectrum, when you're in a very large firm, you have a little more of the large firm mentality, the hierarchy. And then when it's yours, you're like, literally, I'm everybody. But also things are different. Like, I contract out a lot of my work where my office is, we share a floor, so I take advantage of the reception. I'm there with a couple of CPA firms and other law firms, so we share the reception. I have 2 areas of practice and the paralegals are different. So the law firm that's on my floor, I will contract out my family law. I won't let them touch immigration. I will do that. And it's also clients are different depending on the corporate clients I never saw. Never. Somebody is there. We don't know. We have a client. We'll never know who they are because they were shareholders. But with family and immigration, they're in your face. They're in there all the time. They're calling you, they're texting you, so you have a different relationship. So I think that's where you have, and also depends on your areas of practice. If you go into public sector, then you've got the DA's office, the public defender's office, different government agencies compared to the private. You've got hope that helps. Yes, sir. Hi.
Hello, I'm sorry I got here late, but I was just wondering, if you could go back to like your senior year of college and you could give yourself
Okay, let's do that.
one small piece of advice, like transitioning, like, because you always hear about the major workload of your first year in law school. What piece of advice would you give yourself to handle that?
So if I was a senior, where?
Just an undergrad,
Well, in undergrad, I didn't know where I wanted to go to law school, so I went to graduate school. But I think going back, and I understand your theory of, back. I think some of the financial things, I think I would have been more prepared. I would have been a little more, I would have been understanding of, so it didn't work out in San Diego. What's the big deal? I wouldn't have left San Diego. I would have worked a year and applied again. Because, and I see it now, it wasn't available then. The legal community, I will deny it later when you show the video, was very snooty then. In that you were only good if you went to USD. Great school, but no, the attorney makes the job great. It's not necessarily the school. Yes, you have the name recognition. But I know a lot of attorneys who didn't go to USD. And they're exceptional and they're amazing because they do really well. And I know other attorneys who went to their schools and I didn't think they were any better. So I think the financial part, because it always is a concern as a student, I would have been more prepared, acknowledge that, when I go in there. The other is the mind shift. The way you study in undergrad, it is not the way you study in law school. If you're going in there with what you do here, it doesn't work. I don't want to scare people, but that's not how it's done. You have one test. Maybe, if you're lucky, you get the 2. You get the midterm and you get the final. That's it. There's no extra credit. There's no come in and make up that. No, the professor comes in, if they're nice and depends on the type of class, they'll come in and spend time and explain things. Others are like, suck it up. The rest of us I'm going to tell you which cases to read. I'm going to ask you questions. I'm going to put you on the spot. And some of them will mark you if you're not prepared, and that's thing. Others you never know because they don't tell you. But it's a different kind of way you study. It, I had a lot of friends who would they got it. I did not get it. It was just hard because I'm the kind of person that needs to read and then highlight and then go back and then make note cards. Oh my God, you don't have time. right? Others are like, they get it. I can't read without a pencil. That's from law school. I can't, it's always a pencil because you gotta erase it, because it depends on what it is. You don't ever want records. But I can't read if I don't have a pencil with me constantly marking. Because you don't have time to go back. That was our mentality, like you have to read all these pages for all these classes. Are you gonna have time to go back and reread? So it's always mark as you read, mark as you read. Others were able to do that. So I think that mindset, that change where you need to study a different way. And they tell you all the time, you gotta study like a lawyer, or you gotta, prep for the class. You have to prep for the test. That's how you prepare for the class. It's constantly that one test. And it's hard when you're like, your entire grade is based on this one day. And if you have a bad day, there goes your grade. So, yay. So that's what I had the thought, or if I had the ability to go back, I would have been a little bit more financially ready. I would have been okay with taking the year to come back, because then I could have been home, or I could have, built here, and then probably being a little more prepared. Obviously, all the things that did happen brought me here, so I don't want to like exclude that, but I think in hindsight, if I could have, should have, things like that, I would have, those would be my preparations.
Thank you.
When you say that you would have worked a year, what kind of like relevant experience or job experiences like would you recommend between like undergrad and law school, or grad school and law school?
I was already working, so I would have just stayed where I was. I was at the mayor's office and I would have stayed. And I worked with a lot, data protocol, vision. What I loved about it was, she would have dignitaries visit, and it was a job, or my boss's job, to plan, who's coming? Oh, someone's coming from Japan. What would they like? What kind of things do we have from the mayor say? How are we supposed to greet them? How are you supposed to place the business card and things like that? So that was always fun. And how do you, gonna age myself, but years ago, I was in the room when they were deciding, the mayor was deciding whether or not Comic-Con was going to stay here. Because at that time, it was, oh, some guys just want a room in the convention center to talk about little, comic books. And she's like, oh, do we care? Do we need that here? And a couple of people are like, yeah, that's all they want. And look what happened, right? So just going back to, it could have gone somewhere else. Things that are helpful to you to decide whether or not you want to go into law school, then it would probably be to work for a firm, or work for, if you're looking at, depending on the area of practice, reach out, we'll figure something out. But it's, if you're thinking about law school, then you need to be in that kind of environment to see if you want to take that next step. Because being in law school, it's gonna suck, because it's, it's law school. You're there studying, but if you're not sure, why put yourself through it? Again, I'm not here telling you not to go, but it's always good to have that perspective of don't be forced if you're not sure. If you're not sure, take the time. So you're not going, oh, what, why? I'm
Right,
stuck.
yeah.
What do I do now? And if you're in law school, that's okay. You made your first year, you're survived. Yes, you can do it. Second year, yeah, this isn't for me. It's okay. You can leave. It's okay. That's not a waste. You learned a lot. It's better to decide that's not what I want to do than to do the third year, sit through the bar exam, practice, be in a field you're going to be unhappy with. It is not a fun go-lucky area of practice. It's not. You do amazing things. I've done amazing things. I've helped amazing people. I mean, to be able to bring clients from abroad, to be with family, things that I've done with other, in the corporate where, we've saved so much money for clients. You do amazing things. I'm not belittling the practice of law, not by any chance, but it's not always easy, especially as a woman. So it's better. I'd rather have you take more time to make sure that's for you. And if later on you decide it's not for you and you're like, yeah, bad decision, yeah, it is what it is. We make them, we move on. There are times where I'm like, I wish I never started family law, because it's really, it burns you through the practice, but I know the benefits of it as well.
Thank you. Yeah, that was helpful. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Okay, so from my understanding, I'm thinking of taking a gap year. Cause I'm really burnt out from school
Amen, girl.
and I think I would just like fail out of law school because I'm like mentally exhausted. So my plan was technically to like get a job in the legal field. Cause I also need to save money. So I'm hearing that that's not necessarily a bad idea, like setting myself up for failure.
A lot has changed. Again, never gonna tell you how old I am, but I didn't have that option. We weren't like, if someone took a year off, it was always like, must be nice, or did you go to Europe? No, I went to Europe. It was more of like, oh, so what did you do? Oh, and if it wasn't in, law, it's okay. Because now it's so different. Employers look at things differently. Some of the firms, but it's also, there's so many people ahead of you who fought that, who have made it okay not to have your undergrad be poli-sci, not to have, had to have only worked or gone to school here. Your connections, what you learned, how you apply what you've learned, and if you can show your work ethic and the person that you are, it goes so much farther. Example, the firm that I was at in San Francisco, very well-known firm, huge. They didn't have a lot of law clerks. They never had it. My second year there, during the summer, they hired 2 other gentlemen from really well-known schools from the East Coast. I got my work done because I took it as, hi, I'm a law student, the staff here, the paralegals, the secretaries, they're not my students. I'm not gonna treat them poorly. I treated them with respect. My stuff got done. They came in and acted like, oh, I'm going to this school. I'm all that. You need to take care of this. Their work didn't get done. So I'm not saying I was better. It was just how you also treat people and how you, show up. They took it as, well, I'm already here, where I'm like, I'm not, so I'm gonna be nice. And, they're colleagues, I'm gonna treat them with respect. They always ask, will you help me with this? So she may call you and ask for help, so be sure. But it's, you ask for help and they did it.
Okay, what are some golden aspirations you have for the next decade, 2 decades, for your career, for your personal life? What do you want to do from here?
Tired, dude, I'm tired. I have, it's interesting you asked that because I was on a text with a girlfriend of mine who is also an attorney. I feel like I'm like 10 years behind. Because the traditional route is, you graduate and you go to law school and, you're your early 20s and whatever, and then most of my colleagues, the ones that are, by the 5th to 6th, 7th year, they're middle management, like middle partnership, junior partners, and becoming senior partners, and then going forward. I did things later on because I worked until my, 30s, and that's when I went to law school. So I had the time that most people are, graduating and then thinking about law school and maybe even taking the year off. I took a lot of time doing other things and I went into law school later. Then in my 30s, and something that not everyone thinks about is, do I want to have kids? Do I not want to have kids? And that's another issue to consider. That I had to. The natural assumption was like, well, I could just have kids, right? But in your 30s, you're like, oh no, you have only a certain amount of time. And then you're like, oh, what do I do? Do we have kids? Do we not have kids? So that was a little bit of the family became an issue. So what I really started developing my career were in my 40s. So that's why I think, I feel I'm a little behind, but it's not. It's my internal, in my head timeline. Because somebody else has done it that way. But I still struggle with that. I'm like, I should be doing this. No, I took a different path. Others who worked on their career are now figuring out what to do with kids, and their kids are this big and my kids are in high school. So we're in just different place, but I'm a little bit farther behind in maybe, well, it's not partnership because I'm my own firm, but areas of practice and how long I've practiced. In 10 years, there are a couple of organizational things that I want to take care of. One of them is, being in the community running for different offices. So I'd like to continue doing that. And that's really because over the years, I've built a reputation, I've built connections, and I want to build on that, continue that. I would love to grow the firm where I don't have to be there as often, where I can rely, and that's hard. That's part of what you're going to run into. If you're going into law school, if you're going down the road being an attorney, that means you're a type A. It is, you're a type A, and you just want to control everything, and it's really hard. I would love to be able to get to a point where I don't have to be and everything's moving forward without me. I'd love to be kind. But I also know that I'm not that kind of person that would just be able to not work. I would want to do a little bit, but that my hope is to develop the firm to a place where I don't need to be there all the time. It can still function without me just coming in and making sure I'm on nurse. Or win the lottery and not have to worry about all that. But if that doesn't happen, plan B is just to keep working on the firm. Yes. You want to ask me a question? Yeah, sure.
I don't know.
I don't know what either. You're doing so good.
I'm telling us that I cover everything. I think so. I think one of the notions being, if you want to practice law, then you should only have experiences in law. Yes, if you're not sure if law school's for you, but also know that dealing with clients, that's not law. That's like nature. That's just how do you deal with people. I think if you had waitressing or waiter experience, you're gonna do a lot better with testy clients because you know how to like compartmentalize and just be like, okay, they're not yelling at me, they're yelling at the situation. How you deal with people makes it huge. I mean, it's so simplistic. How you deal with people, it's huge because you're going to be dealing with opposing clients who don't always treat you with respect, belittle you, or think that because you're a woman or maybe a woman of color, you should take care of certain things. For example, we're in court, family court. The judge, after you present and you have your case, what they'll do is say, okay, here's my order. This is what I've decided. One of the two sides will need to go ahead and put an order together. Basically, summarize that little lecture the judge gave you, their order, and then submit it for approval. Usually, the judge will either direct it to you will do it, and in family court, you don't have, the plaintiff and defendant. You have respondent and so you were there. The judge says to the opposing counsel, you're gonna go ahead and do the order. When we walk out, it's an older gentleman, he turns to me and goes, so you got it, right? I'm like, no. The judge said you're doing it. He's like, no, honey, but I know that you'll take care of it. But I was a younger attorney, so I didn't stand up and be like, what's wrong with you? No. But realizing that in court, you don't say anything, you walk out, and again, you're like, deadline, you've got a couple of days, you got to turn in this form. And we reached out again. It's like the court asked you to take care of it. I thought you were going to take care of it. We didn't. Like, no. But I didn't feel comfortable in telling him off because I was worried about, you don't want to be that attorney. You don't want to be that person who's, you work with other people, but also I didn't think it was appropriate how he was handling it. So I reached out to a mentor of mine, a female, and I wasn't complaining like, mommy, can you take care of this for me? But it was like, I need your help. I need you to tell me what's the best way, professional way for me to speak to this person and it goes back to, we all know each other in San Diego. She goes, who is it? I'm like, no, I'm not complaining. I'm not tattletaling here. I just need you to walk me through so I can defend myself, be the, grown up and tell this attorney. And she goes, tell me who it is. And I did. She goes, oh, he was my mentor. Hold on. She made a phone call. But it was more of like, I'm glad that she did it because she helped him be better. I got a phone call from him half an hour later. I will get that form to you as soon as possible. Thank you, sir. I greatly appreciate it. It's just a relationship, but it was also I needed to go to someone and be like, help me. So for all of you, don't feel like you can't ask for help. And I think when I was going through law school, it felt like if I asked, it was like, oh, I wasn't smart enough, or I didn't know how to do things, or, oh, do I look weak? Oh, forget that. You know what? You need help. We all need help. If it's not now, it's going to be later. Reach out. It's okay. And sometimes, like, as I was saying it, I'm like, oh, I figured it out. Thank you. But sometimes you just need somebody else to listen to you or be like, I got you. I know what you mean. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid if there's an issue you're unsure about, to reach out to someone and be like, I'm concerned for this. I'm not sure this is correct. I am not sure this is the right thing that they should be doing. And ask for help. And you can always reach out to me. And if I don't know the answer, which it could happen, and, I will find you someone, to get you the answer.
Is there any other questions? No? Okay, well, thank you so much. That was amazing.